So, you want to organize a fan event. Welcome, Citruscon. This is whimwitch, and I'm
And
here.
Scumsuck.
Yeah, I'm here with Scumsuck, and we're gonna go over everything you busy bees need to know about what you need to do to organize fan events for your own fandoms. So, in general, we're gonna go over who we are and why the hell we feel like we're the right people to tell you how to run a fan event, and then we'll go through all of the details about why a person might want to run a fan event, types of fan events that you can run, where you can run your fan events, how you run your fan event once you actually get it rolling, how you might archive your fan event, what we learned through our experiences, and then we'll share resources and have a Q&A at the end since this is a recorded presentation. So a little bit about us. So I'm Wimwitch. There's not a lot to say about me. I'm gay. I like Yu-Gi-Oh. I participate in a lot of fan events and zines all over the internet and in real life. I have run the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rare Pairs Mini Bang for 4 years in a row, and I do a lot of shit posting and blabbing on blorbo.social.
And my name is Maggie. My artist name is Scumsuck. I like SpongeBob. I run Arcade, which is a creative exchange for original characters, which I'm planning to run again this year. And I've also run a bunch of zines for myself and for other people to join, which you can view if you click on the links in the slide. I am also on Blorbo.social, which is part of the Fediverse, so join me and Wim on anywhere other than Twitter.
Hell yeah. So we both are going to be talking about two events that we've run that we thought would be really good examples for people that are new to fan events or just want to see behind the curtain a little bit for how we actually put all of this together. So my event is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rare Pairs Mini Bang, and basically it's this huge collaboration where people are partnered with an artist or a writer depending on the ordering of the year, since we go back and forth between the setup, and we have a ton of people that create pieces that go together, and every year I put it together in a huge master spreadsheet since everybody's posting everywhere online these days, so it's nice to have everything collected together in the end.
And I run Arcade, which the last year was on Dreamwidth, and I continue to want to run it on Dreamwidth. People sign up by posting a sort of exchange letter with a list of the characters they want to see, drawn, written about, or other creative things made about. And then people simply respond to the post with works they made for that person. There's no obligation to do uh, trades, but it's highly encouraged to make something for someone else who has chosen to make something for you. It's a complete free for all, but we've had people made like 200 things total in like 1 month. So people get really motivated to just start making things when you don't give them deadlines.
So when you are trying to decide that you're wanting to run a fan event, I feel like the most important thing to consider is what's your why? Like, what is the reason why you want to go through all of this work to bring people together and moderate an event? So, you might want to think about a particular niche that might be missing in your fandom. For example, maybe you're interested in rare pairs, or there's a specific ship that you're interested in that doesn't really have its own event because maybe there are like a whole bunch of fans that you personally know that you really want to collaborate with, but you just need to find the perfect excuse to bring them all together. That might be a reason why you might put a fan event together. Or maybe there's a lack of fan events in your fandom. You might want to build community on top of creating art, or like I said, you might want to be bringing together specific groups of people. So this could be outside of even the fandom perspective. You might be interested in a specific kink or fetish, and that can be a really nice way to collaborate with people outside of your fandom through a shared interest. But most of all, you want to think about if you yourself are a masochist and you personally enjoy putting in a lot of work where you might not be getting a lot of, really tangible rewards out of it, aside from the fact that you feel good about creating this space for other people. You really want to think about what you personally want out of this event and if there might be better avenues to do whatever you're interested in outside of a fan event if it's not something that makes you really feel like you're compelled to organize something. And so Scumsuck and I thought about our own events and why we decided to run them, and we felt like there was a lot of overlap. So I would say for the Rare Pairs mini bang that I run, specific to that event, there were a lot of fandom wide events, but typically they were dominated by about five popular ships, and they were not really welcoming to people that were interested in spin-offs of Yu-Gi-Oh! It was mostly just people who were fans of the original series, which is Duel Monsters. And I would also say that I was really interested in focusing on rare pairs because in personal circles that I was in, there were a lot of friends that I had that were interested in rare pairs. And even if you yourself are not especially familiar with that rare pair, I feel like a lot of times rare shippers are more likely to support other people that also like rare pairs.
And for arcade, my own reasons were because original character communities are usually very child friendly and will ban you for having 18 plus art off site or even implied on their website. So I'm an adult, all my friends are adults, and I thought that we needed a space to do this. This also was concurrent with like just after like Tumblr had started banning all not safe for art, and everyone's realizing, oh no, porn or other adult things are going to disappear offline if we don't preserve it. So I want to encourage people to make their own spaces on their own websites to archive their stories and characters if they happen to contain things that might not be allowed on the open web. The other third point is very similar to Whims in that people who have OCs are generally going to be interested in other people's characters as well because we don't have a built-in fandom like, mainstream media. We have to support each other and make fan art for each other to make each other happy. And I just feel like, if you're stuck in your own brain space talking about your character, you're likely to like get into someone else's brainworms about their character too, much like rare pairs.
Absolutely. And something that we definitely share with the reasons why we made events, which might resonate with a lot of people watching this right now, is that there weren't really other spaces in fandom or OC communities for our particular niche. We wanted to create these collaborative spaces for a wide range of art styles, especially when there's certain events that might only focus on fic or might only focus on 2D art that's more traditional and not inclusive of all kinds of other art. Because, like with arcade, what types of art have you had people contribute?
Oh yeah, Wim made a recipe based on one of my characters in the voice of that character, which is really cool. And we've
Hell
had
yeah.
people like make music playlists based on each other's characters' vibes. So I'm just in love of like every sort of art. Like if you put creative effort into it, like that's just so cool.
Yeah, and then also like there's a lot of freedom that you yourself can have from freeing yourself from limitations that maybe you've experienced in other events when you can kind of tailor it to your specific interests and your specific needs within a fandom. So there's a ton of different fan events, which we're going to cover briefly. But when you're looking through these, you might want to be considering some of these different questions just to figure out what type of event might fit the kind of community you're trying to create. So you might want to consider the types of fan works you currently see in your fandom. Is it a really fic heavy fandom or is it a really art heavy fandom? Because based on that, you might have a harder time drawing in writers if you don't really see very many fics for your fandom at all, but maybe there's a lot of artists. Or maybe you want to really foster more people to feel like they can create art for a fandom that might be really fic heavy. So maybe then you would want to have an art focused event. but then maybe you want to really make sure that your expectations are lower if you know that maybe there won't be as many people interested. But I think that's kind of the beauty of this is when you have a really small event, it's really a nice way to foster little communities, and you never know who's out there until you actually create the event. And then you also want to consider maybe what the average fan is like in your fandom, like the typical fic length. If you're in a fandom where it's not really common for people to write fics that are over 10K, you probably don't want to do a big bang where your minimum is a 50K fic. It's just not going to be realistic. You might want to also think about where people are posting their fan works, and if there are already people within the fandom that seem like they like to collaborate with each other, especially if you have friends that collaborate, it's a nice way to reach out to them personally to bring them in, and it makes it a lot easier to build that community when you already know people who are willing to share their works with each other. So there are a lot of different types of fan events. We're going to cover six main types today. So there are bangs, exchanges, anon or kink memes, fan weeks, fanzines, and gamified fan events. So starting off with big bangs or mini bangs or reverse bangs. As we go through these slides, you might want to take a look at the pros and cons for each type of event to decide if this might be the right fit for you. But a bang is a partnered writing or art collaboration event where people are making art based on each other's art, essentially. So there might be a person who writes a fic and then somebody creates art for it, like this example here. This is the Dean Cass Big Bang. It's been running for 15 years. It's a really, really good example. If you're interested in running bangs, I would definitely recommend looking at this. But there are also reverse bangs where a person might make a piece of fan art and then someone makes a fic based on it. So why it's called a big bang is just because when you're making all of this content and it's all published all at the same time, there's usually like a week or a month where everybody's posting their fics and art all together. It's like this huge burst of content. So it's like this big bang in the universe that is giving you this wonderful gift of a ship.
And next we have exchanges. Basically, you sign up with a request and you fill others' requests. Sometimes it's done more formally where you're assigned to fill, other times it's a free for all. The image I have here is an example of what you will get if you sign up for an exchange on AO3. You can see that this person got assigned someone who requested Despicable Me fanfiction, and they have their likes listed as well as their DNWs. DNWs stand for do not want, and you commonly put that in your exchange letter so people know I really don't like this. Please don't put it in my fic. And it does not have to be on AO3. It can be a Secret Santa. It can be a free for all like Phantom Trees. The possibilities are endless.
Then there's also anon or kink memes. These are not as common anymore, but they were very, very popular on LiveJournal and they're still around on Dreamwidth. Sometimes you might see them on AO3, but they're basically an anonymous prompting event where somebody leaves a prompt specific to a fandom or a ship, and then they wait very, very, very patiently for another person to fill it. So in this example here, this is from a Disney kink meme where this person's requesting something for Ratatouille and they're interested in Colette Linguini's first time, and then someone would reply to this with a fill. So it could be a fic. I've also seen art fills for these. It really is up to whoever wants to run it, but it's definitely something that a lot of people aren't really familiar with anymore, but it's very low stakes as far as an organizer since it's not really based around any set time.
And here we have fan weeks. Typically run as a hashtag on social media. The event account will post prompts for the week, and people will post their fan works, usually using those prompts as inspiration, in that same hashtag for people to find. The example I have here is a Inktober thing I ran for my Discord server, where I had various different prompts for people to fill, and it was very low pressure, so you just like choose one or none. If you didn't like any of them, just skip to the next week and just post it for everyone to see, and everyone will appreciate it. Next, we have fanzines. These are printed or digital fan anthology projects. The larger, expensive ones are sometimes for profit, charity, or include merch, but this is not necessary at all to make a zine. The very base definition is to just have something to read. The examples I have here are a zine I ran based on the concept of a girl scout character from Team Fortress 2, and I made a physical zine with lots of combination of text and images, as well as a little bit of extra stickers to go with it. Again, none of the extras are necessary. You don't need merch or fancy binding. I did mine all at home with printer paper and staples.
And last but not least, there are gamified fan events, and these are basically the same as everything we've been talking about, where there's some sort of prompt or it might be a gift, and it's all unified around either a fandom or a specific kink or whatever. But these are creative events with really interesting rules or setups, and oftentimes they're competitive. So the example I have here, this is a multi-fandom event that you might be interested in called Battleship Exchange, and it's pretty much like the game Battleship. There's a grid board with coordinate spaces where somewhere on the board there's going to be battleships, and you're put on a team where your goal is to fill whatever the prompt is within the spot on the board, and you're going to hope that you're going to sink somebody's battleship. And it runs really quickly because people are just filling these prompts as fast as possible to clear the board. But there are also bingo events. I feel like a lot of times those tend to be multi fandom. The limits are really up to the organizer. You can do pretty much whatever you want with these. So now that you've heard about all of these different types of events, you might be asking, whimwitch, Scumsuck, how do I organize this event? And so I would say the three things you really want to keep in mind before you get involved in planning an event is number one, you want to make sure that when you're organizing, you're prioritizing yourself. You want to run your event based on your own availability and your own interests, because if it's not something you're interested in, you're not going to be wanting to run that event like ever again. Number two, I would also say that it's good to keep in mind that anybody can run an event. In the words of Chef Gusteau, anyone can cook. So you might be thinking to yourself, I am not good at networking with people, which is not something you need to do to run an event. Or you might be thinking, I don't know how to archive things. That's definitely something you can learn. And I would also say that people that participate in these events are really kind and also willing to support you through this. There are a lot of skills you can learn from other people who might be interested in supporting you if there's an event you're interested in organizing. The number three rule is to not have too many mods. You do not need a mod for every single task that you might have to do to run your event. The more direct communication can be with your participants, the better it will be for you and the people in your community. It's not really helpful if you have 6 or 7 mods that are each assigned to a task, but then maybe there's miscommunication between the mods if a participant reaches out to somebody, or maybe people aren't sure when to jump in to actually complete a task. It's a lot of times easier if you really trim the fat with that and just have enough people to make it run functionally, and sometimes that means just you.
And don't worry about doing things that you don't have any experience in. Like, you don't need to hire like a social media mod or graphics mod. If you don't know how to use Canva or Photoshop, make the graphics yourself in MS Paint. It'll look great, I promise you. And I'll love it.
Definitely. And I think a really good example here of like reaching out to people when you need help for things is when I'm thinking about how I run my event. I really like to make sure that the participants feel like they have a stake in it. And so this most recent year, I reached out to people and asked if they could help me with making a banner because I personally did not have time to draw a bunch of little different Yu-Gi-Oh characters. So it was actually really nice to get art from the community with people just pitching in. That's something that you can also consider. But this is the homepage for my event. I use Dreamwidth because I like to have everything on a solid platform that's not going to go anywhere. And I basically make a master post on there with all of the information for people that might be interested in my event. I have an FAQ. I have a page where I list the specifications, I list the contact information. But really, I make sure that I am hosting all of my information in one place, and then I use other platforms to supplement communication for the event once things are actually running.
Yeah, the same goes for me. I also use Dreamwidth as the homepage of the event. It's very useful because people can also subscribe via email or RSS feed to get updates instead of having to ping everyone in the busy Discord server. And keeping links all in one place is just so good for people being able to know what the rules are, how to do things.
So, when we're thinking about how we run our events, we thought it would be helpful to kind of show them side by side so you can see what things look like for different events or different ways that you might want to consider organizing. So, for my event, for the mini bang, I use a huge spreadsheet to organize everything from signups to the claim process to when the pieces are actually posted. Just because I feel like it's a lot easier for me to go through all of the information as the organizer to just see everything in one place. And since the claim process for a bang is anonymous, it's nice to have that completely separate from a platform where people might be able to see where people are claiming things. Sometimes there can be drama if people see that like one particular prompt summary is really popular and a lot of people are claiming it. Some people might feel bad about the piece that they're creating. So I've felt like it's really helpful when I've run my event to have people, they basically will sign up once they're committed to being in the event, and they'll say, you know, this is the ship I'm going to be using for my piece. Here is a summary of what my piece either looks like if it's art or a summary of the fic, and you know, content warnings and everything people might need to know. And then for the people that are claiming this piece, they will see these summaries and then they will sign up with a form and I will hand match all of the people with a partner who's interested in their piece. Usually I ask people to sign up with their top three or their top five works. And then if anyone is unclaimed, I reach out to people that have shown an interest in pinch hitting, and it's worked out really well every single year because I think the pinch hitters feel motivated because they know that they're going to be getting a little gift at the end of the event for their extra work, which is usually just a sketch or somebody might write a short ficlet for them.
All right, and for arcade, I set up the exchange in the style of a free for all. So I took a lot of inspiration from the Fandom Trees event, where people post their exchange letter as its own post. People reply to that exchange letter with their gift, and then you are forced to comment or be shunned from the community. So first you see that I have the basic information in your exchange letter. You need your name, you need a page for your characters, which encourages people to make their own website, by the way. You let people know what your preferred characters are. You have a lot of characters. You have a bunch of lists of likes and prompts just to start people off with an idea if they're not familiar with your characters. Then you have do not wants, which is like hard, like I don't want this, it'll ruin my day if I see this kind of things. And very importantly, repost permissions. So if people want to show off the art they got on their own website or use it as an icon, it's very easy to just say, hey, it's okay for you to do that, or no, please don't do that. Next, you see a reply to my entry token by Love is Short. They simply replied with a link to a new post in the community that has an image of what they made for me. In this case, it is a drawing. And then I replied with a comment saying, oh my god, I love this. You're amazing. I'm going to hang this up and show everyone. You also see there are 8 other comments in this thread, and I really welcome other people to comment on art or writing or whatever, even if it's not for them. You need to look at everyone else's art they made and appreciate it. By the way, this art is by Spilling Down, and they have an artist alley table at Citruscon, so go visit them.
Yeah, go be nice to Spilly, please. They make really good art. So I'm going to blab a little bit about bangs just because a lot of people aren't really familiar with the mechanics of these types of events. So I mentioned before all of my stuff is hosted on Dreamwidth, but outside of having the signups through a form and all the spreadsheets are organized, I also keep a Discord that's used as a chat or an announcement hub. And I'm going to be mirroring that community to Revolt soon because Discord really sucks a lot of times. But basically, I'll keep a lot of information there and then people can talk with each other. And it's really nice to have a Discord community because then if somebody gets paired up with their partner, they can immediately have a way to contact them. But people can also participate in this event through email only. That's also worked completely fine. And then I also post announcements to the Fediverse. So if you've heard of Mastodon, that's one example. And I've bridged my account to Bsky so I don't have to have multiple accounts to post the same information. I also sometimes use Tumblr for it, used to use Twitter, but I feel like it's easier to just have a bridged account that people can go to, and you don't have to have every single type of social media account to run an event. And the Bang itself, it runs for 4 months with a sign up process, people claim, and then I have a few check ins as we go through those months just to make sure that people are on track to finish because if somebody has to drop out, then I have to find somebody else that can fill in for that person. And I really like my event switching between being a traditional bang where you'll have a writer that writes a fic and then an artist creates art based off of it. And then on other opposite years will be a reverse bang where the artists get to create their piece and then a writer writes a fic based on it. And I feel like it really keeps things fresh. You don't run into as many issues with people creating the same thing every single year, and then you might have people who lose interest because there's not as much variety in the ships. So if you've never seen a bang before, this is what a regular bang looks like, where you have this wonderful fic here written by Millennium Writer, and then you have art that was inspired by this fic that was done by Scumsuck. But on the flip side, you could also have a reverse bang, especially if you have a fandom where people tend to write shorter pieces. A lot of times, reverse bangs have lower word limits, and you'll have an art piece that then inspires a fic.
And I like to talk from my experience as a participant in Whim's Bang event. I have done both the drawing from someone else's fic experience as well as having drawn something for someone else to write something based off of. In this case of Fair Chivalry, I signed up first because I was very interested in any pairing involving Rashid, and then we got matched up together. We DM'd each other. I read the draft of the author's story and kind of zoned in on a specific scene I want to illustrate. Something I chose based on what I think would encapsulate the relationship in one scene. So in this case, Rashid has never really been out for a night on the town, and Kujaku is going to show him what it's like to play cards and stuff. I thought that really showed the characters off. I told that to my writer. I sketched out my drawing. They said, "Cool, that's awesome. Could you add this and this detail?" I specifically asked them about details about what sort of cards I should add in their hand to sort of show the personalities through that as well. You can see Kujaku has the king and queen because she's sort of in charge of this conversation, while she is also smirking because, well, Rashid doesn't know how to play cards very well right now. But I found this a very satisfying back and forth situation because it's very rare that you get such tailored feedback to your work, and it's great to take advantage of this opportunity to really get those compliments in, work each other's stories up, and you'll inform each other's work with your own art or writing and make for a much more satisfying final piece where the art and writing really shake hands and work together.
So I would say some quick advice if you're interested in running a bang is to check out ongoing bangs or participate in one first, just because if you've never seen this before, it might be a lot easier to understand if you've participated in one first. But you also want to make sure you have a plan for how you'll match unclaimed people because there are a lot of bangs where people might have to drop out and no one ever is able to come in as a pitch hitter, and it can really suck if you're working on like a 20K fic and you have no partner there to kind of cheer on your creative process and collaborate with. There are a lot of bangs that also match the fic word count with the quantity of fan art that is given to that person, and I feel like matching the fic word count with the amount of fan art somebody can get is really tedious and more stress than it's worth, including for participants, especially if, let's say, somebody is writing a 15K piece for their Big Bang. And in the tiers of art, that means that they're supposed to get two sketches, but then there's someone who wrote a 50K fic and they're supposed to get like a 6 page comic. And maybe that artist that's doing the 6 page comic would have been more than happy to do a couple of sketches for this person, but because they're so tied to the amount of work that they have to do, it's harder to get artists to cover everybody. So I would say that if you're interested in running a bang, that might be an antiquated feature of bangs that you might want to leave out, especially if you're not confident that you'll be able to find people to do all of that art for somebody. It's also a really good idea in any type of event to be open to hearing ideas from your community because it really keeps things fun and organized, and people have a lot of good ideas that maybe you've never thought about. So, you might wonder where you can run your fan event after hearing all of this great information about fan events. And so it really just depends where you would like your event to be hosted. So Scumsuck, you could walk us through this because like you've used probably all of these platforms when thinking about fan events. So what are your thoughts on this?
Oh yeah, I think you want to decide first what kind of fan event you want to run and figure out what are the strengths of each platform to streamline communications and posting. You may or may not want to use multiple platforms, but the less you have, the easier it is to keep track of everything. For example, like everyone has an email, but does everyone check it? It's very slow. You don't get instant feedback. Discord, instant messaging, instant feedback. People are yapping on there all the time, but can you keep track of all of that? You also think about the life expectancy of the platform because we live in an age where sites are going up and down all the time. They make new rules, they ban certain things. So a lot of popular corporate social media is going to go through ups and downs, while smaller things like, say, Dreamwidth, email, the Fediverse, you're a little bit more stable in their rulings. Self-hosted is also possible. There are sites like Creative Clash and Artfight, which I know have their own website, forums, and image uploading, but that is very time intensive and expensive because I always see these sites asking for like fundraisers to keep their site going, and that can range into like the thousands just to host like 100 people or more posting their art and writing all the time.
So we've both used Discord in some format for our events. When I've used Discord for the mini bang, it's pretty slimmed down. It's really just a copy paste of a lot of information that I already have on Dreamwidth, just so people have that information. Discord to save my sanity. So if somebody's asking, like, what are the rules? They can just go to the rule channel and see everything if they don't want to look on Dreamwidth. But I also have sections where people can just chat, and I have artists and writers split up when we're at the part of the event where pieces have to be kept secret from the other side. So, like, if, for example, people are creating art first, the writers should not know about any of the art that's being created until claims open, just to keep things a little bit more exciting for people. And then I have a section that's just kind of a dumping ground for people to post anything that they want to share to be promoted or inspiration that they might have for their piece or memes. And I also felt like it was really helpful to create a section for people to talk about other events, just because people that are involved in your event are probably also going to be doing other types of events.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of the way Whim set up their Discord server because it feels much more streamlined than what I tried. It keeps things on topic. You don't have too many people yapping about for example, event channel. Don't have those. Keep things focused on the event and make Discord servers for other things for other topics if you need to. I used my Discord server for the first 2 years of Arcade to actually run the thing, and I don't recommend it for this type of exchange because it's just really messy and hard to keep track of each other's fills. When Discord introduced threads and forums, that helped a little bit to keep people's comments and art organized, but it was still really hard to get everyone sort of on the same page with everything. But still, it's very valuable to having community engagement because I kept the Discord server open during Dreamwhift's year so people could talk to each other about each other's characters and be like, "Oh my god, have you guys seen this meme? You guys want to fill out this meme to like dress up your character like this and this, or like, oh, what would your character eat if they went for a date?" Like, I think that community involvement is very important, and as much as it's hard to moderate a Discord server, it has a lot of pros to it that you should consider.
Yeah, like a lot of people use it, but at the same time, I feel like modding can be really busy, especially if your event is running pretty quickly and people might be having a lot of questions. It can be difficult to be available at all times. And then there's also like the paywall limitations with certain features on Discord, and the terms of service with 18 plus art are kind of rocky. So you might want to check those out if you're planning to use Discord for your fan event.
What are the paywall limitations you've run into?
I would say that it's hard for people to upload large text files. So it can get kind of tricky if people are wanting feedback on a longer passage from their fic. They're not really able to share that. So they have to basically share the whole draft and then explain like where they want people to specifically look. So it gets kind of clunky in that way. Or I feel like there were more issues with image uploading earlier. I feel like Discord's increased the limits with that.
Found that like uploading images that goes in hand with messy archiving. It's very hard to search images to find people's fills or find old drafts or see what your partner's working on.
Yeah, it's really just a little tricky to jerry rig it to work exactly for your event, but I definitely think it's a good supplement, especially if you're wanting people to be able to chat with each other really quickly. We both use Dreamwidth, which has been described as the coelacanth of the internet, which is not a bad thing. It's going nowhere. And so I would say the biggest pros of Dreamwidth is that people can get email updates. And if they don't want email updates, you can get RSS updates, which, if you're younger than 30, you might have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. But it's basically just automatic feeds that you can set for websites like Dreamwidth, or Twitter used to have RSS and it does not really work anymore. There are a bunch of websites that use RSS like blogs, and you can put them in a feed if you want to see everything all together. Fediverse actually has built-in RSS capabilities, so if you are interested in getting Dreamwidth updates there, you can just plug it into the Parrot bot and it will give you an RSS feed for whatever event you're interested in. It also allows anonymous commenting, which can be really nice for things like kink memes, for example. And you can have tagged posts like Scumsuck for Arcade, the way that you had tagged posts for characters. I thought that that was a really nice way to actually see everything all together for different OCs. I feel like Dreamwidth also has a pretty permissive TOS. I'm not as familiar with it. Could you talk on that a little bit?
Oh yeah. So the TLS in Dreamwidth is basically the same as AO3 if you're familiar. Anything that's legal under US law, you can post on there. The only thing is that image uploading is not intuitive. It's not drag and drop. You have to manually upload everything. So you can host your art on there, but it's much better for writing because you can just paste however long of a post you want. So one of the biggest cons of Dreamwidth is that younger people might not know how to use it because it's so old school. You use HTML to format posts, you use HTML to upload images, and a lot of people don't know how to use sites that aren't like they don't have an app like Twitter or Blue Sky or something. And the DMs are very clunky on Dreamwidth, so I ended up using Discord for DMs anyways. Another weird con is that you cannot edit your comment after it's been commented on. So it'll just stay static in that state forever. I highly recommend, in that case, having a comment as a link if it's something you might edit later.
All right. So moderating events, it's really different for everyone, but I feel like Scumsuck and I are pretty much on the same page with this. So as far as participation numbers, my event was pretty solidly at like about 25-ish people for the first 3 years, which I think is a really great number as far as like getting your sea legs with how to actually moderate an event. And then this year it jumped up suddenly to 56 people, and this is the year I realized my cap, which is completely fine to do. You are allowed to set limits just to make sure you're actually able to organize your event. Part of this reason is because my event only has 2 mods and I am not interested in adding more mods to the process. I am the primary organizer, and then my partner Miscellaneum is there for backup, mostly to field questions and help when I'm doing check ins with everybody. And honestly, I feel like the perfect balance for mods is having 1 mod per 25 people. There's really no reason to have a whole bunch of mods for a small group because having excess mods is not necessarily a good thing. Like, too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the broth, so keep things simple for yourself.
Yeah, I had similar participation numbers for the first couple years I ran arcade as well. We dipped slightly when I moved to Dreamwidth because a lot of people did not want to learn to use Dreamwidth, but that was totally fine with me. Having your numbers go up is not necessarily always a good thing. Having them stable makes it much easier to moderate and keep in mind the amount of moderation you have to do each year. Because I had a similar situation where my partner is also my co-moderator. Like, I know my partner, I can trust him. We have the same idea of moderation. Like, oh, if you post like something like bad, something illegal in a state of the country of Germany, then we need to like warn you and like do that. We're not going to argue over like, oh, should we ban this person or not? And but the con to that is if you are in the same time zone as your mod, you cannot answer questions from people in a different time zone. And we had people from all over the world in our events, like some people in Asia, some people in like Australia, while we're like in a different time zone. So in that case, it was easier to be able to moderate things on a slow site like Dreamwidth because we could just wake up with less sense of urgency having to address like a dumpster fire that had occurred in our sleep.
So you might be wondering, okay, I know how to run an event. I have an idea of what event I might like to do in the future, but how the heck do I actually archive this? And there's not one answer. It really just depends on your personal preference and what might make the most sense for your event. So for the mini bang that I run, I use a spreadsheet that's partially inspired by the Dean Cast Big Bang, like I said. They use a spreadsheet for all of their works, and why I decided to use a spreadsheet is because it contains links to all of the works. I have people posting things everywhere. People post on Twitter, people post on Tumblr, people post on Blue Sky, people post on Fediverse. I've had a couple people post on DeviantArt, their own websites. Like, there's just art everywhere, and all fics are posted to the AO3 collection. But when you have all of these links, I feel like it's easier to just keep them in a spreadsheet so that people can just see the pieces all together and appreciate them as one nice little chunk like this. And part of why I decided to use GetGrist is just because I used to use Airtable and they've paywalled a lot of their features. So this is a nice alternative, just to make sure that people can access this information. Another really nice thing about using a spreadsheet is if people are only interested in a specific series. So if people are like only fans of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, they can filter the spreadsheet and only look at everything that was made for Arc 5. It's just a really nice way to see everything all up front. But I would say that learning how to manage spreadsheets like this was the biggest learning curve I had, just because there are a lot of functions I wasn't familiar with. And when you're having to actually put all of this information all in one place, it's really easy to accidentally miss links or maybe use the wrong link because somebody would prefer to be credited a different way. There's just a lot of things to keep in mind, but I feel like this is a really nice way to present all of the fan works that you might have for your event if you are going to have a really large quantity of them or if you're having people collaborating with each other.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of the spreadsheet method that Wim uses to have a big show off of the end result of their bangs. Uh, and it does have a good thing where if someone doesn't want their fic to be readable anymore, they simply delete their fic or like orphan it, and then it it doesn't have to be updated on the spreadsheet itself if you decide you no longer want like repost permissions or stuff.
True. Yeah, it makes it really easy for me to not have to touch this again because the link will update. All of this stuff is just there.
I do wonder about the portability of it. Like, should Grist ever go down, can you just copy paste this into another spreadsheet displayer?
You can. One nice thing about GetGrist is you can download it as like a standalone file onto your computer. And so it's easy to re upload somewhere else, which is something that I would definitely recommend that you do if you're archiving works, is to keep an actual copy physically on your hard drive. Because, like I said, Airtable, I used to use it for 3 years and then it started having issues and I had to move everything over here. Thankfully, Airtable is similar and you can download it. That's something to keep in mind, is that I feel like a lot of these live spreadsheet platforms go through changes. So I think it's a good idea to just keep a backup on your system so you don't lose everything.
Yeah. So speaking of portability, I archived my event on my own personal site with like plain HTML. My event happened to be mostly visual art. So in that case, it was more useful to me to have like thumbnail galleries to display the art. That does mean you have to ask everyone for permission in order to re-upload their art. So in my case, I just uploaded my own art and people could make their own sites to show off what they got. And I have a separate section on my website for gifts that I've gotten, including fics and visual art. And that can also be on their character pages too, which is a neat thing about personal sites. You can make so many pages for each of your characters, for each piece of art you've given, for each like fic you've gotten. It's just very wonderful and very portable because you just save the HTML, copy paste it in any other host, and you can see your thing again. I also printed zines for the first 2 years as a physical keepsake of the event, but that also took an extra level organization that I don't really recommend if you're short on time, because then you have to ask people for their pieces, format them, make a PDF and then print it. But in the end, it is very worth it to archive it because I just look at these pages every so often. I look at other people's websites and I'm like, wow, that's so cool we did all that. I can't believe we actually made like 115 pieces in like a month. So, do you have to archive your event? It depends on your goals as an organizer. Wim, could you tell me some of the reasons why you would not want to archive your event?
Sure. So there might be content specific in your event that maybe you do not want people to easily find. Like maybe it's about a controversial kink, or maybe it might violate copyright if you really publicly post all of the pieces of your event for everybody to see and you're worried about it getting taken down. There's also a lot of beauty and events that just kind of run and people make pieces and then maybe no one ever finds them again. Like a lot of fan weeks tend to be like that just because you're posting it to a hashtag and maybe you'll only see it once and then never again. And it's kind of cool to know that you've seen all of these pieces and they're just kind of out there in the ether. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Scumsuck?
I personally love to archive all my stuff because I'm like Ritzka from Loveless. I will forget if there's not photographic evidence I did something. But I also realize the value of having something made that you learned from, you had fun with, and then you never have to think of again. It's like a one night stand of art or writing. And it doesn't mean it's any less valuable. It just means that you did what you needed to with it and you're ready to move on to the next beautiful adventure.
Yeah, so it's totally up to you with how you want to do this. Just think about maybe like your strengths with keeping information and the easiest way to display it or not display it. So, what we learned through all of this. So, for me, I feel like one of the biggest things I learned was to set boundaries, especially with myself, to not overextend myself with my organizing and how much I'm doing. Because your goal with this should ultimately be to have fun. And if you're running into situations where you're feeling burnt out because of maybe a specific task you're having to do, then maybe think of ways that you don't have to do that for your event. I know for me, I was getting really burnt out of having to use a lot of different social media platforms. And so I decided that I'm just going to host information in these two places. And if people don't see it, then they don't see it. And that's okay. I also feel like word of mouth is the best way to garner interest in an event. You do not have to have like six different social media accounts everywhere to have a nice event with people. I've had the best experiences with people that I just talk to and tell them that, hey, this is an event that I'm running, you might be interested. And they join and they tell their friends about it. And I feel like it's a really positive community when people already know that there's someone there that they want to collaborate with or someone that
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
familiar with.
I joined Whim's Rare Pair Exchange because they said in my server, hey, I'm running a Yu-Gi-Oh event. So I'm like, dude, I love Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm gonna join. So you join one event, and eventually that just becomes a bunch of other events that you can find out from too.
Yeah, it's like the gateway event. Like you just want to like drag people into this wonderful experience with you. And then like having a set schedule is important. Like you want to kind of plan ahead to deadlines if you're running an event that has a specific time frame in mind. But at the same time, you want to be flexible with yourself and participants. You don't have to stick to what you originally planned to be the week where everyone's going to be posting their works. It's okay to maybe expand that into 2 weeks or maybe a month. That was something where I had to pivot this year just because I wasn't expecting as many people to be participating. And instead of having to really plan ahead to like, okay, when are people going to post things this week? How am I going to make sure that this all gets done? It was a lot easier to just have the whole month, especially when I had multiple people asking for extensions. It's just kinder to you and everybody else. At the same time, when I've been organizing events, there are sometimes really unfortunate situations where you might have to deal with people that are bullies or jerks to other people in your event. And I had to be okay with kicking people out that were really ruining the vibes for everybody. It's your event at the end of the day. And if there's somebody that is making other people uncomfortable, or if there's somebody that is gossiping about other people that are in your event and saying really nasty things about them outside of your server, it is okay to use your best judgment with that and keep things friendly and comfortable for the majority of people. And it doesn't make you a bad person for kicking those people out.
100% agree. Like that was a big stress point with some of the events I ran in Discord Like, no matter how you write your rules and say, hey, if you join this event, there's going to be some horrible stuff that will, like, be not safe for life if you click into, a content warned post. There are going to be people who click on it and be like, this is disgusting. How can you post this? This should be illegal. You should go to jail. Like, just kick them. Don't try to reason with them. Don't think, oh man, I should give them a chance. Maybe they'll get better. Just kick them. It's not worth your time. You're not a paid therapist. Just kick them. And a lot of these people will try to shame you and keep on DMing you after you've kicked them. Just block them. Don't talk to them ever again. They're not worth your time. Don't let them like make you feel like, why won't you let me into your small event? You must hate me. Who cares? Maybe you do hate them. So I also agree completely with word of mouth being the best way to do things. Like, don't try to over advertise. Don't think about marketing or whatever. If you only have like 2 people, that's fine. If you get 50 people, wow, that's not necessarily better. That's a lot more work. But any number is a good number. Just remember, like, each person is making something specifically for someone else, and that's just amazing, right? If you're just talking to someone, they just gave you a gift on nowhere, that's fucking great. I also learned gamification is very hard. It gets people excited because it activates that monkey brain, like you insert a peanut and you get a prize in return kind of thing. But it's super hard on the moderators, and I overextended myself and my other partner in this event in trying to make prizes for people. Like I would draw like custom emotes or like commissions for people basically. But like, woo, that's a lot. Make it simple, like a cute little button they can put on their website or like a fancy Discord role. And I will say that you should keep things very like short and sweet, as simple as possible in terms of guidelines for uploading, posting, and formatting. Like for writing, Discord has a limit of 5,000 words, so you want to keep that in mind if you're hosting an event on Discord. Or for images, maybe like you personally have really slow internet, so you gotta ask people, can you make your images less than 500 kilobytes so it doesn't take an hour for me to like look at this image? And give them the tools to do so, because not everybody is very like into computer stuff. Like send them a link to photop.com to resize their image, or send them a link to a word count website to make sure they're under a certain limit. And don't worry about deadlines. It's all for fun at the end of the day, and the more relaxed you make it, I find the more people actually just casually come in and do things, like more than you thought they would. Like maybe you'll get someone who doesn't do anything for the first like week of your event, and the next week they like write like 10 fics for 10 different people.
All right, so that's everything in our presentation, but we do have a bunch of slides after this with resources and examples of different fan events that you can click on with the blue links. And since this is recorded, we're going to have a Q&A in the chat, and I'll be talking to people at Citruscon to see if we can have like a thread or a forum specific to this panel. But if you'd like to take a look at our slides again, we have our QR code in the corner and also the hyperlink we posted in the chat. Scumsuck, is there anything that you want to end on?
Get out there and do an event. If it's your first time, don't be afraid to make something that seems bad or like, kind of janky. It gets better every year the more you train yourself.
Hell yeah. Just try it. If you build it, they will come. And just remember to have fun. Organizing is a really wonderful experience, and I'm sure you'll love whatever communities that you get together. So,
Yeah, I mean, I met Wim through like doing events, and we're doing this event on how to make events together right now. So friendship is magic.
yeah, exactly. We're coming full circle here. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of CitrusCon, and we're so happy to answer any questions that you have. Feel free to reach out anytime. See
Bye
ya.
bye.